And the question we're answering is, Kim Satyara hoye, give kure tutte pal. Now, this man is asking the question, how do I become truthful? And then Bani takes us through that journey of how this man becomes truthful, the process it goes through. So we got into the point where we spoke of the third body, where the man is in a state of gave. And we understood gave as the state in which the man gives the utmost value to divinity. So we're speaking about the internal gave, the man in a state of gave, instead of the external singing that we commonly speak about. We understood how when this man reaches the state of gave, it wants to grow. It wants to be in this state for prolonged periods, not just for temporary moments. We understood Amrit Vela, Sach Now, Vadhyai Vichar. We understood how Amrit Vela, we want to make our whole day Amrit Vela by living in that divine state always and not forgetting that divine state. Vadhyai Vichar, Amrit Vela, Sach Now, Vadhyai Vichar. To be tuned to that wisdom 24/7. We understood Gurmukh, Guru de Mukh to Nikli Awaaz, that inner voice that guides us. And we're going to understand these concepts even further as we go over today's 40. So, concepts to go over, vocabulary. So the first pankti, Tirath Nava, Je Tis Pava. Tirath. So, common language, Tirath is the pilgrimage bath that's taken. Go on a pilgrimage, take a bath. Tirath Nava, Je Tis Pava. Now, how does Gurbani describe Tirath? How does it define it? Gurbani says, Tirath Navan Jao, Tirath Naam hai. So it's defining it as, I go to that pilgrimage bath. Naam is that pilgrimage bath. Tirath Shabad Vichar, Antar Gyan hai. Now it's speaking about Antar Gyan. It's speaking about the Tirath within us. It's talking about the inner pilgrimage, about the pilgrimage of wisdom, Antar Gyan, going on that inner journey, understanding the wisdom, growing in the wisdom. Otherwise, what in Gurbani is said about that external pilgrimage? It says, Navan challe tirthi, man khote tan chor. So what it's saying is, when we desire to go on an external pilgrimage and we don't understand the inner pilgrimage, we remain impure, and externally we are trying to cleanse ourselves. But cleansing ourselves externally does not cleanse us internally. So we do not become satyar. The kud ki pal is not broken. Suche e na akhiye, ben je pinda toye. Suche se nanaka, jin man vasya soye. So externally we can bathe, we can get clean. But if our man is impure, we have impure thoughts within us. Our home runs deep, and we are not working on purifying and removing it. then there's no value in this external bathing because it cannot do that. So now we understand Tirat, the inner pilgrimage. Ramdas Sarovar Nika. So that inner Sarovar is beautiful. Ramdas Sarovar Nate, Sab Utre Paap Kamate. The inner divine Sarovar, bathing in that, our vices, our negative thoughts, our destructive thoughts that are causing us to suffer, those get cleaned up. All right. So Tirat Nava, Je Tis Pava. Okay, so the common misunderstanding in the world tends to be if God loves me or if God chooses, if it pleases God, then I will be able to do this. But in reality, it says Satgur Sabna da Pala Manayanda, the enlightener, the divine loves everyone, wants good for everyone. So there's no discrimination. There's no, oh, I like you, so you will have this ability. No, it's up to us. Jetispava is actually the man. If it pleases the man, it will take that pilgrimage, inner pilgrimage, and bathe in the Sarovar. So now we're understanding that it's up to us. So what does Gurbani say about this? It says, Date dat rakhi hath apne. The divine, the giver, has the giving, has the offering. Rakhi hath apne. Jis pave, jis man nu pave, this day gives. If the man would like it, otherwise, if the man would not like it, then it's fine. They can choose to live how they would like. So Sikh Sakha Bandap hai pai, je gur ke paane vich aave. Apne paane jo challe pai, vichhad chota khave. So we can choose to live gur ka pana, with wisdom, with love, or we can choose to live with ego, and we could live with vichhad chota. We suffer. We are departed. So that comes up to us. It's upon us. All right. Tirat Nawa Je Tis Pava. If it pleases me, if I truthfully would like to, if I have the zeal to, I will do it. Vin Pane Kenai Kari. If it does not please me, then what's the point of me doing it? I will not do it. It's not going to happen. So it comes upon me. Jeti Sirit Upai Vekha. Going on this pilgrimage, bathing in this pilgrimage bath, the world, because we're talking about Siddhart, Srishti, the world, but we're not talking about the external world that's created. We're speaking about the internal world that's created when the man bathes in this sarovar, on this inner pilgrimage. So we're looking at the same idea as Hukmi Hovan Akar. When the man lives by the divine will, by the way the divine wants us to live, how the divine teaches us to live, a new akar happens, a new creation happens. Our inner world is created. A new inner world is created. hukmi hovan akar. Jeti sirat upai vekha. The new world that is created, I see the new world that is created within me. Vin karma ke milelai. So we're going to understand karma, karam. This divine philosophy that I gain by bathing in this tirat, this pilgrimage bath. I gain a divine philosophy. Without that philosophy, I cannot gain this new world. This new inner world is created through this divine philosophy. A beautiful, lush, green inner world is created. Mat vich ratan jawahar manik je ik gur ki sikh suni. Okay. So mat vich ratan jawahar manik je ik gur ki sikh suni. Within the mind, gems, jewels, rubies, what are we talking about? We're talking about beauty, value, very valuable. Thoughts come to my mind if I listen to the teachings of the Guru. If I listen to the teachings of the Guru is teaching me wisdom and it's bringing beautiful divine thoughts in my head. So there's a Shabad and it says, Kadiyal mukhe gur gyan dridaya ram. So a bridle, so it's giving the analogy of a horse, and our horse is controlled by the bridle and guided. Kadiyal mukhe gur gyan dridaya ram. The Guru's wisdom, Guru guides us with this bridle and makes the wisdom within us stronger by keeping us on that path. Gur Gyan Dridaya implants it, makes it stronger within us. Tan Prem Har Chabak Laya Ram. The man's body, so the scene is how the horse is whipped with the chabak, but it's mentioning Prem Har Chabak, Prem Chabak. So lovingly keeps us on the loving, divine, wise path. Through love, Mit bolada ji, har sajjan swami mora. Ho sammal thakki ji, o kade na bola koda. So there is no malice in it, and it's not us actually getting whipped, but it's a constant reminder within us to stay lovingly, to stay on this path of love. Tan prem har har laye chabak, man jine gurmukh jeetya. We have won this ability to listen to that voice within us. Our man has won that. And our man's body is hit with that whip of love to constantly keep it on that path. So for example, some thought may come in my mind to do something negative, but within me, my voice, inner voice is telling me I should not do that, and it's stopping me. So it's the idea of the Ramkar. So we may know that scene of Sita is in a house and there is a boundary drawn around her, and if she leaves it, she'll get captured by Ravan. If she stays within it, she's safe from Ravan. So the idea there is Sita is the mat, the mind, And once the mind leaves the divine protection, it's going to get captured by, or within it will come demonic thoughts that will cause it to suffer. Demonic thoughts will kidnap the mind. तन प्रेम हर हर लाए चाबक मन जिणे गुरमुख जीत्या अगड़ो कड़ावे शब्द पावे अप्यो हर रस पीत्या काड़त कड़ावे. So the way a statue is chiseled and perfected and cleaned up, in that way our man, through the shabad, is chiseled and it is beautified, it is cleaned up, and it gets to drink the divine nectar. Sun Shravan Bani Gur Vakhani. We listen, our man's ears listen closely to the wisdom that the Guru is sharing, that the Guru is presenting. Har Rang Turi Chadaya. The man, in that analogy, is the horse, and it is being imbued in the divine color. Har Rang Turi Chadaya. The man is being imbued in the divine color. Maha Marg Panth Bikhada. That long, treacherous path. Maha Marg Panth Bikhada. The path of suffering. Jan Nanak Par Langaya. We are guided to live in a way of love, of beauty, of purity. We are being hit with the jabak of love to stay on that path, to remain on that beautiful path, which keeps us away from suffering. And we do not get hurt by suffering. We go across that path. We have the wisdom to go across that path. So we're connecting this with Matvich Ratan Jawahar Manik. Je ik gur ki sikh suni. We gain such beautiful, loving, wise thoughts that allow us to be above suffering. And we go across that suffering and remain in a state of bliss. Gura ik de bujhai. So the Guru gives me this understanding. Sabna jiyan ka ik data, so main visar na jai. The animals within me, sabna jiyan ka ik data, gain that wisdom. So why are we speaking about this? We're speaking about the animals within me instead of the external animals, because we're speaking about the inner world. We're speaking about my animalistic behaviors that are within me that need to be cured. So it says, Jinni Satgur Purak na sevyo, Shabad na kito bichar. Oe manas jun na akhiyan, Pashu tor gawar. Jinni Satgur Purak na sevyo. If we have not served the wisdom, if we are not becoming that wisdom, if we do not do Shabad Bichar, which is to read, understand, listen, become that wisdom, Oy Manas Junanakian, we cannot call this our human life. We are still Pashu Tor Gavar. We still have the negative vices, bad animalistic behaviors. And again, not to say that animals are bad, it's just these certain behaviors are not humane and they're within me. Those are the negatives. We are still those animals. We are not human beings. So yes, Pashu Manas Champalete, which is animals with the skin of humans, Andro Kalya. Within we are malign, we are dark, we are impure. So we're getting this understanding of how we are within us and how we need to gain this wisdom to become pure. So sabna jiya ka ikdata, within me, the Guru, is providing this wisdom, which I can feed to my animals within me to transform them and to improve their behavior. So main visar na jai. May I not forget that. All right. So I'll conclude it there. Saki, Amitoj, would you like to add anything or any questions?
I think the only part, um, the translations were based on like how I view it too. But when we talk about, where is it? The mun making the decision of like Tirat Nama Jetis Mama, that part, it's unless someone has ever gotten any sort of guidance in life, I don't know how they would be able to find that Jetis Mama with the wisdom. So that's the only part that like I struggle with of we are fortunate to have had exposure to like there's more to what our mun is doing, what our ego is doing, and there's a better path. But majority of the world doesn't get to have that privilege, so I don't know what the way is for majority of the world.
For me, I think you, you already know this that our definition of hukum is slightly different, uh, which still works for this. And just also bouncing off what Saki said, uh, here it still aligns with the other definition where some things fall in place for some people a certain way and doesn't matter how much they try. Uh, and the other part, while you were saying that, I found interesting. So me visar na jai is translated, and you also translated like, um, may I never forget this message, right? So there is still a hope. I hope I this doesn't happen. If Jaitis Bama was truly I am in control, then that should have been. I'm not questioning Guru Nanak Dev Ji's writing, obviously, but that then should have been "Main nahi visranga" instead of "So main visarna jai." Like I know this now. I'm not gonna stray off this path. And then the only other thing was "Sabna jiyan ka ikdata" is also it's cool that you have it translated like your inner animals, but why only the negative ones, right? When it says subnagia, so even when you feed those animals to transform them, now they're transformed into, I don't know, good animals. Even for those, Gia, it also stays true. Um, so in my head, sabna means, whether you want to take it internal or external, means everything, right? Not only the negative. Um, but yeah, those still the same message at the end. So agree with everything. Everything.
Saki, could we start with what you had mentioned first? Could you mention it one more time?
Yeah, so I was just talking about how Jete Spama, um, because that is under my man to decide of like this wisdom suits me or I like this and I want more of this. How do we go about people who don't have the privileges that we have of being exposed to the wisdom?
So people get to the point of wisdom in many different ways and in many different stages in life. It comes down to how resistant they are. Many suffer a lot. And that's the beauty of suffering, right? Because we spoke about how pain is a blessing because it gets us to, or it helps us, tries to help us get to the point where we need to change and become wiser. And it really depends on how resistant we are. That's how long it will take us. So people may get to the point after much suffering where they want to change and they come to this realization. Some people are fortunate enough to have a zeal early. They don't require much suffering to want to get in this state. And then they are exposed to the wisdom of others that allows them to get there sooner. And that's the beauty of it, right? We learn from the wisdom of our previous generations if we choose to. And we are able to get to that point earlier in life if we choose to. Many have the philosophy of I learn from my mistakes. Many others have the philosophy of I learn from others' mistakes. So it comes down to which philosophy we hold. Because if we're willing to learn from others' mistakes, then we're going to become wiser faster. If we choose to learn only from our mistakes, we're going to get very old making a lot of mistakes. We'll get wiser, hopefully, sometimes not, but it'll definitely take longer. You could let me know if, anything else you wanted to add to that.
No, I think that makes sense. I guess I'm only on this side of things, so it's hard for me to imagine someone not on this side. But I suppose psychology and the therapy, and it's a good thing that it has become more prevalent and more acceptable and not a taboo thing because I think just even watching a lot of psychology content also talks about how you take the things, they basically make you go through the same experiences that cause people pain and suffering and reimagine those and reframe those issues. So that's kind of along the same lines of changing how you view those horrible times in your life and come out of it learning or growing from it. So I suppose it's narrow minded to think just because I have access to Gurbani, that's the only path to living a better life. There's millions of years worth of knowledge and different um, religions and studies and science and philosophy and whatnot that has been saying the same thing. regardless.
So we also need to keep in mind, is this wisdom exclusive to Guru Granth Sahib or exclusive to a Sikh religion? We're speaking about an inner wisdom that is within every single human being from the start. Before there was Jesus, before there was Buddha, before there was Nanak, before any of these beings. And where do we see it? Who came first? Faridji came before. Sanji, Kabirji. How do they have this wisdom? It's not exclusive to Guru Granth Sahib. It's not exclusive to a Sikh religion. It's an inner wisdom that is there, that's always been there. It didn't start in 1469. It's just those that realized it and have gone deeper, and those that have shared it to help others become aware of it. It's always there, even if they're not aware of it, it's there. Some have realized it earlier, some have realized it later, and some have been guided by those that have realized it to realize it earlier than they would have. But it also comes down to their zeal to want to understand and grow. Now, Amitoj was mentioning Sabna Jiyan Ka Ikdata. Yes, that's true. That's for every Ji Jant. And what does Gurbani say? It says, Nanak nirgun gun kare, gunavantya gun de. So those that don't have the gun are given the gun, and those that have gun are given more gun. So it is sabna jiya, right? It is whatever state we're in. Even if we have gun, we're going to get more, even more gun. So we're always growing. Sahib mera neet nawa. Every single day we are growing, 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 growing. We're never finishing this. And that's the beauty in it.
I think if you want to add anything.
Sorry, I was assuming that you're going to add something.
I don't have anything to add. Sorry. Did you mute for me? Unmute for me?
Yeah.
Oh. Oops.
Okay. Anyone else want to add anything? Have questions?
Well, Amitoj also mentioned one other point. We were speaking about so mein visar na jaye. And if I'm in that state, how can I even have that doubt of, oh, may I not forget? So we also need to remember that humility is a divine quality. If I am saying I am done, and within, even though they were amazing beings right at the top, the what people who wrote this wisdom, the whole idea is that they had humility. They're not going to say, oh, I'm never going to forget. They're going to say, this is so beautiful. This is amazing. Not out of their ego. Their ego's not saying this is amazing. It's just amazing. It is what it is. This level, this nirvan pad, such a beautiful state. They're not saying it's mine, and they're not saying I've perfected it. They're saying, I would like to not forget it. This is amazing. So there's a humility in there.
I'm glad you said that because that's what makes the other definition of hukum interesting that I can't really truly agree with because they were saying hukum is now yes, but we are in control of it. No, because that is not humility, then, right? That is some way of ego. I got this, or I'm gonna do this. I am in control of my thoughts, yes, my environment, no. And coming back to this goes back to our hukum, right? You can I see situations as snapshots, and over time you can improve, but every single moment things are not always in our control. Long term, yes, we can do that, but the teaching is in my head for single snapshots. So at that single snapshot, either you have control or you don't have control. And over time, you can have control, but in that snapshot, it is not your time. But over a big span of time, you can see, yes, you've improved. Um, that's why it's not going to be fair to my own thought process if I pick one definition that suits me here and the other definition the other way, when one definition just works for the entire. If I look at snapshots, yes, continue improving. Here I'm in control, here I'm not in control, continue developing that. So at the end, the mun is fully in control of virtues. So for what you said makes sense, but it also is a little conflicting on humility. Doesn't come with I got this always.
And I was just curious, what definition of hukam was it that um, doesn't make sense to you?
I believe your definition is that the hukum exists now and it's within everyone, and it is up to them to either live by it or live against it. And if that's not true, then I'm sorry. Then I thought that was basic understanding of your definition.
Well, I don't really like to call it my definition, but the punkti that I would go by is so sikh sakha bandha hai pai je gur ke paane vich aave apne paane jo challe pai vichhad chota khave. There is the guru's way of living, which is hukam. There is apna pana, which is the man's way, the ego way of living. And those are how we look at it. It's two separate things. And then we also understand that if the man wants to gain happiness, if the man wants to gain bliss, it understands Ome dirag rog hai, daru bhi isma hai. So there's a desire, which is ego, but if it's a desire which can lead to the cure, kirpa kare je apni, ta gur ka shabad kamaye. So within its ego, it has its desires, but once it desires that thing that will actually truly permanently make it happy, which is Gurka Shabad, then it will use that desire to kill its ego and become more divine. So what we're really looking at isn't a definition I would just, say off the top of my head, right? It's more so Hukam Razai Chalna Nanak Likhya Nal, and we're understanding it as it's either I live by my ego's way or Satgur Ki Mat. And Satgur Ki Mat is the reality, which is what I was meant to live if I would like to be elevated and not suffer. But there is a virus in me that is causing me to suffer. And the more I am aware of this virus, I can work towards growing out of it, which will take me out of the suffering. And that understanding, which takes me out of the suffering, is Gur Ka Pana, which is Satgur Ki Mat, which is Hukam, which is what I was meant to live, so I do not suffer.
So here, first of all, I'm sorry if we're reopening a topic that was already discussed, but so here, when someone asks, like, say for example, we're back in the Guru's era, right? And then you ask Guru Nanak Dev Ji, so what do I need to do? And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Hukam Razai Chalna. And then, okay, Hukam Di Razate Chalna. And even with this definition, what is this path of Hukam? And then you say it is what was meant to be if humans had a pure mutt, what that life would look like. That is the path that you should walk on. Okay, how do I know what that is, what that looks like, what that feels like? And so once you start living in the flow of life, you will start living by the hukam, which is the Guru's way, which eventually, again, in that snapshot, there's that uncertainty. But in the big picture, at the end, you are getting the Guru's wisdom and living in that. And then at the end, when you said there is really not any end, you begin to understand what that path is, and it is continually being defined and changing over a period of time. But it starts with following life as is where it breaks down for me the hukam. And yes, I understand that it can be misunderstood as when people say Jad mera hukam hoega, a very, very misunderstood definition, and that is, I'm way far, far away from that. But understanding that I will 100% try to pick a wiser path, but there are going to be times when I will fail, which is okay. And it is those snapshots that tell me no, it is not in my control always to pick the wiser choice. Even though if I really want to, if I really try to, and then this is when we can go back and forth and saying, okay, but when you practice over time, you will achieve that. But we don't live in multiple moments at a time. We live in one moment at a time, which, again, I'm repeating myself now, so I will stop. But yeah.
I recently heard in one of the videos where he was talking about being on the path of wisdom doesn't shield you from life. It just teaches you how to be peaceful in whatever life your circumstances are giving you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the only way to do that, I think, is sort of in the middle of that, right? Yes, it's not snapshots, but at the same time, each of those snapshots add up. Each time you reflect back on those snapshots is how you pick and choose of like, this reaction made sense because it kept me peaceful, and then you pick and choose and you continue growing from those. So I don't think, even Gurbani doesn't say that there is an end, right? So really it cannot just be from this snapshot on I am peaceful and I am enlightened, because that's just ego talking at that point. So if you're going, if Gurbani is also saying, and Guru Nanak never said I am enlightened, so for him too, every snapshot was still a growth snapshot, right? He was also picking and choosing of like, this in this moment this was great, be better this way, X, Y, and Z, whatever. So yes, it cannot be based off of just one snapshot, but even within those snapshots, if you're able to listen to your inner voice and reflect on the fact of like, I did feel like that was not the right thing to do, even if you are not able to make that choice right then and there, because it's a journey, it's a path, it's a process, it's not a destination. So I think you're still sort of on that path of hokum and getting to that phase of living with it better and better.
Well, you kind of mentioned it, right? It's something we live, it's a path that we live, and we keep growing and we get stronger in following that path, that we stray less. It's easier to not stray as we get stronger with it. The more we live it, the more we value it. Of course, when we stray, if we have the awareness at that point, or if we would like to, we bring ourselves back. And do we become aware of our suffering, which becomes a driver for us to want to go back on that path? Because we realized, okay, we valued something temporary. I don't feel the beautiful state that I would like to feel, that I felt. Okay, let me get back on that, because this is not the way. So it is an awareness, right? And that awareness is developed. And that's why we're always on this path. We're on this path. Every situation we live, we have that moment, depending on where we are, at what point we are on our journey. We have that moment of, we will have that old conditioned thought, which is going to cause us to suffer. And how long or how much effort it takes for us to choose that divine path and stay on that, rather than stray onto that old path. The more we practice that and the more we stay on that divine path, the easier it gets to stay on it and not stray away. So that comes down to that whole Somay Visar Na Jai, and it gets tougher and tougher to forget it as we live on it longer, as we practice it longer.
Do you wanna?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any thoughts?
I guess I wanted to. Hi guys. A little camera shy right now.
All good. Thank you for joining.
Yes, of course. Thank you guys so much for just kind of providing, like, your thoughts and your own, like, research that you guys have done into this. I guess the one thing that I was kind of, you guys have talked about, like, hookum and barna, but then in this one body, like, the shabad for garam is always brought up. And I think that to me always confuses me because in this case it says like good actions, but I always thought garam was just like your own doing. So how do you kind of just like decide what garam means in this scenario exactly?
So Kabir ji has a shabad. It says, "Apne karam ki gat main kya jano baba re." What do I know? What happens? What are the results of my karam? And it says this pankti, "Naru mare, nar kaam na ave. Pashu mare, das kaj savare." So it's saying, when of course there's many translations to this, but the deeper we study and the deeper we understand it, we'll start to see how, certain things may or may not make sense. So sometimes it's translated as naru mare, nar kam na ave. When a human being dies, the human is not of no value, but when an animal dies, an animal is of value, which in reality doesn't make sense because organs are still of value. So memories are still of value. I mean, if you want to consider that, but if you don't want to, then organs are still of value. But we're not talking about physical human here. We're talking about naru mare, narkam nave. When my humanity dies, I am of no use. Pashu mare, when my animalistic behaviors and thoughts die, well, the negative animalistic behaviors and thoughts that are not meant for humane behavior, das kaj savare. You could translate that as many things are fixed, or you can translate that as the 10 openings are fixed. I speak beautifully, I see beautifully, I listen beautifully. You can think of it in that way as well. So when my negatives, my vices die, so what it's putting it as is, karam is philosophy, and the more humane my philosophy is, the more beauty my life has. So the understanding of karam is, based on the philosophy that is in here, such will be the experience of my life. So it's not about physical actions, that's a byproduct of my philosophy and how strong I am with that philosophy. If I have a beautiful, humane philosophy within me, and I work on that and I practice it and get stronger with it, my experience of life will be very beautiful, and I will live beautifully externally as well. That's what it means by lok sukhiye, parlok suhele. Within me is the parlok. So we're not talking about after we die and there's a, parlok or whatever. We're talking about parlok, which is my inner world. Suhele, lok sukhiye. I am peaceful, I am blissful. Externally, I am beautiful. When my parlok suhele, within me, I am beautiful. Hopefully that gives some understanding. So it's basically the philosophy within me, which leads to my experience of life. And if it is of that of suffering, that means I need to fix and improve upon the philosophy that is within me, because that means my inner animals are still behaving poorly, and I need to give them wisdom and make them humane.
That's a very deep reflection of garam, I guess. Like Because you're right. I guess in a lot of ways, like our actions again boil down to our mindset, and it is a philosophy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Remember that. Okay. Appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Just bouncing off his thought, the way I see it is in this particular phrase is instead of good actions, you can replace that with efforts to make that philosophy work. Because, if I learned this today and if I want to put it to use, I might fail. But then the effort, you create that guttum of putting that continuous effort in, only then you shall receive the Guru's wisdom. Okay, I think we're about to die in a minute, so I will stop talking.
It's only truly our philosophy if we actually work on it. Okay, shall we say our goodbyes?
Yes. Thank you everyone for joining
Guys.
as always.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys.
Bye. We can continue the discussion on the group.